fucking motivating. Seriously.
Thank you, brother.
It's fucking motivating. I wanted to thank a few people for making this possible. You all know that I put this together with the help of the Semper Fi Fund narrative. But the idea was really born about a year ago in a conversation with Todd Moran's wife. Had it not been for her urging me to try to put together a reunion, we wouldn't be sitting here today. So I want to thank Sarah Moran first. I want to thank the Semper Fi Fund, and I want to thank all of you guys for showing up. And I'm going to introduce Craig Wiggers. Is our guest speaker tonight?
Got him. Hey, Ricky, thank you very much. Semper Fi Fund, thank you all very much. And Marines, what an honor it is to have an opportunity to speak with you all again as a company, as the Alpha Males. And so earlier this week, I contacted Colonel Abbott, and I said, hey, sir, we're going to be seeing the Marines this weekend in California, and I think it would mean a lot to them to hear from their battalion commander. And I would appreciate it if you would share some thoughts when I have an opportunity and the privilege to speak with them. And he responded immediately. I mean, it was like a no-brainer. And so I'd like to start by sharing his letter to us, to the Marines of Alpha Company. Marines of Alpha Company, it was my very great privilege to serve alongside of you. When I arrived in 2001, you were already a great company with a superb reputation. We set to work preparing the battalion for war, and you met or exceeded all expectations. I may have seemed a bit insane with the endless junk on the ramp, embarkation drills, taking everything to the field, the Ismit turret trainer, and the Lake O'Neill mud races. But I'd been to war twice, and I had a notion of what it was going to take to be successful in combat. All of us vividly remember where we were when the World Trade Towers came down, and that feeling of what it meant to us as active duty Marines. Chaplain Rich House came into my office the next morning and said, sir, the colonel isn't as crazy today as you were yesterday. We were going to the war, and you were ready for it. As ready as you could be in the short time allocated. An Alpha Company story I tell to friends is this. I was on one of my daily long walks through the area, and I stopped into the AAS battalion classroom to check on some Alpha Company training. You guys were well aware that I carried Navy achievement medals and coins in my pouch on my belt. One of your staff NCOs grabbed me and introduced me to one of your young hard chargers, Corporal Marty Medellin, and told of some great thing he had done within the company. I asked, did he deserve a medal? And when told yes, we had an impromptu ceremony right there. It was an important story for me because a year later, when executing PCS, I routed through Fort Worth, Texas, and met with Corporal Medellin's parents, then visited his grave. For you that weren't there, he was killed in action along with Private Andy Aviles, who was in their AAV, and it was hit with an Iraqi 122 millimeter artillery round while providing fire support for an assault across the Diyala River. I may not have known every single Marine of the 1,300 Marines and sailors by name in third tracks, but I was proud to have personally known Marty Medellin of Alpha Company. I was sorry not to have been able to take Craig Wiggers along for OIF, but the needs of the Marine Corps wouldn't allow it. We always say that the mark of a well-trained unit is one that can lose a key leader and still carry on. And that is what you did. For the 2003 invasion of Iraq, you were magnificent and you accomplished the mission. For the combat veterans, I say nurture that bit of insanity and passion for training your Marines for war. It is what we do. It is why our nation keeps us around. Don't waste a single minute of training time. So this weekend, as I sit in the mountains of Pennsylvania, I will raise my glass and propose a toast. To the Marines and sailors of Alpha Company 3rd Assault Amphibian Battalion, I have served among heroes. Semper Fidelis, Rob Abbott. So thank you, Colonel Abbott, for sharing that with us. Now it's my turn. And I want to start by saying, I love you. I love every one of you. And I am so freaking proud of each of you and what you accomplished in our time together. And then when I left the company and what you accomplished in Iraq. And more importantly, what you all have accomplished since leaving the Marine Corps. Some of you still are in the Marine Corps. You all are amazing men. And to have stood shoulder to shoulder with you is a privilege and an honor that words, they will always fall insufficient. But I love you guys. I love you guys with all my heart. And I have my pictures of Alpha Company up over my office at Cornell University, and people come in and they ask all the time about Alpha Company. They're like, oh wow, you guys look pretty sharp. I'm like, hell yeah, we were. So when I first joined the Marine Corps as an officer, I'd been in as an enlisted Marine for a few years with the reserves, and then when I became an officer, the best piece of advice I received right off the bat was, sir, you take care of your Marines, and your career will take care of itself. And I strived to do that every single day that I served with the privilege of being an officer and a leader of Marines. And when I look at you all, and those that unfortunately can't be with us tonight, I feel very proud that I did that I did take care of my Marines, and you all took care of my career. And the other thing that I was told was that your staff non-commissioned officers are going to make you. And we are so privileged to have staff non-commissioned officers from Alpha Company that nurtured, mentored, trained, led these junior officers, myself included, minus Gunner because he's so old, but that helped guide us in the responsibility and the gravity of leading the Marines of Alpha Company. And for that, I salute each one of you, those staff NCOs that did that. And I thank you. What I'd like to kind of say in terms of going forward, we can reflect on where we've been, and that's an important thing to do. But going forward right now is more important. Going forward, each one of us need to take that energy, that enthusiasm, that Marine Corps thing, that esprit de corps that we carry in us for our lives, and we need to be bright, strong spots in our American culture. We need to be the example that folks look to say, you know what? That guy's got something going on that's right. And I want to be like that. And when you take a look at folks like Ron Beals, who's leading Chill Will, when you take a look at DeShane, who's working as a VA nurse, and the examples in this room alone, there are so many of us that are being those bright spots and trying to be that positive influence in a place that, we're struggling right now as a nation. There's no doubt about it. But we're going to get through it, and we're going to be stronger for it. But it's going to really come down to us, and each of us as individuals making those positive impacts going forward. I want to tell you also about a gentleman that I learned about over this last couple months. As you all, some of you know, I started doing a little biathlon training, cross-country skiing and shooting. Never skied before. Alabama doesn't get snow. So I'm in New York now, and one of my friends said, hey, you got to look up this guy named David Goggins. I'm like, David Goggins? All right. Wasn't he an amp tracker? Like, no, that's Dave Goggins. But David Goggins is an African-American man who grew up in Brazil, Indiana, and faced quite a bit of challenges growing up with an abusive father, and when I say abusive, I'm talking abusive. Very broken home, and was living with his mom alone, and he wanted to be a Navy SEAL. And he said, you know what, I'm going to go be a Navy SEAL. He goes talk to the recruiters, they're like, no way, not happening. How about you join the Air Force? So he goes to the Air Force, he does this thing in the Air Force, he tries to become a pararescueman, challenge himself, do some great things. And he did his 3 years, ended up doing extermination work for the Air Force, like literally with bugs in cafeterias and chow balls and things like that. He gets out and he just balloons. He goes to about 300 pounds, living a very unhealthy life. And he looked himself in the mirror and he said, you know what, I'm going to change this and I am going to become a Navy SEAL. He ends up losing over 120 pounds in 9 months, goes to the Navy SEALs recruiter. He ends up going to Buds and goes through Hell Week. For the 3rd time, he makes it through Hell Week. Recycled multiple times. This guy is a warrior. And what he talks about in his book called Can't Hurt Me is about the 40%. The 40% that we as individuals go through life with, and we think, hey, once we hit that 40%, all right, I'm maxed out. I need to go ahead and stop this run. I need to stop what I'm doing at work. I need to, put things aside. But we have 60% of untapped ability, untapped energy, untapped mental strength to get through challenges in life. And what he does with the remainder of his life is amazing. This guy ends up becoming a SEAL, getting his trident. He ends up doing ultra marathons, which are 50 miles. Then he decides, you know what? I'm going to start raising money on behalf of the special warfare families that have lost individuals, lost their fathers, their brothers. And he decides to start doing like some really crazy stuff, like the Badwater, where he's going 200 miles through Death Valley in a 24-hour period. He does Ironmans in Hawaii. This guy is just a stud. And in his book, Can't Hurt Me, which I encourage you all to take a look at, he talks about these challenges and how he faces them. And he provides kind of some checklists at the end of each one of his chapters. And he talks about, hey, start making some checklists. Start thinking about where you're at. Now, it doesn't mean you're running an ultra marathon or you're doing these awesome, physical endurance tests. Whether it's you're sitting in your cubicle, whether it's you're teaching an elementary class, whether you are still in the Marine Corps, we have an untapped 60% of potential that we need to dig in and find. And David Goggins made a big impact on me when I read that book. And I tell you what, I'm going to step out with a full 30-inch step, and I'm going to be looking for that extra 60% that I've got each day. And I want each one of you, as we walk out of that hatch and we start going back to our lives and we start going back to what we're doing, to start thinking, what do I have in the reserve tank? What am I leaving that I'm not bringing to the fight? How can I get to that 100% and be that bright spot? be that positive bit of energy that our country needs right now and set that leadership example. And Marines, I'll just, we're going to take a toast here in a minute, and Ricky's going to lead us in that, but I want to stress again to you how much I love you. You are my brothers. And when I think about my family, it's you guys. It's you guys. And I have, one major disappointment in my career was not being able to go with you across the LD into Iraq. But, that's the way it ended up. And you guys, like Colonel Abbott said, you were magnificent. You accomplished the mission. And I am freaking really proud of you all. And I love you guys. So thank you very much.